This is Burma, and the sun is rising on a very special day for the Burmese people, and all the Buddhist people of the world. The festival of Wesak. Wonderful things concerning human possibilities are said to happen at Wesak. And the most wonderful thing which the Buddhists celebrate is the birth, supreme enlightenment, and final death of the person they call the Buddha. It is his influence which has motivated and continues to motivate every aspect of Burmese life and culture. This is the vast plain of Pagan. For 1,000 and more years, the great ones among the Burmese, the kings, queens, ministers, and hermit monks, have had their memorials erected here. Not as tombs, as men build tombs, but as organic working parts of their culture. Burma is still very much as it ever was, and aware of what is required to stay that way. If we find Burma today untouched by the pathologies of our own materialistic civilization, it is because these people are consciously keeping themselves free from contamination. And this is the highest form of wisdom a culture can possess. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Early pilgrims approach the temples on this peaceful Wesak morning. The temples, in silence, await the thousands of pilgrims who will pay their respects on this full moon day. It has been said by the wise that a nation's soul may be seen in the art that it produces and the songs that it sings. Every aspect of life is an art to the Burmese people. The highest expression of the national spirit is to be found in their temples and in their shrines, their ancient rites and ceremonies, and the immortal gestures and understandings which are affected by them. For living teachers still abound in Burma. They are the ones who have experienced for themselves what it feels like to be without desire, craving, or clinging to anything at all. These men are not Buddhas. The Buddha is their teacher, and when they follow his path to nirvana successfully, then there is no difference between them and their teacher. Both have attained the goal. It was on this day, 2,530 years ago, that Gautama Buddha, after many years of sincere effort, attained enlightenment. His influence to this day and on this special day is felt throughout the world. A solitary monk carries his shoes around the marbled courtyard. A young girl gives offerings and bathes her venerable teacher. Both a gesture of sanctity in this holy Sri Dagon temple in Rangoon. An older woman places flowers in the palms of the resting Buddha. She's been doing this daily for 50 years. This ceremony of bathing the Buddha is unique to Burmese Buddhism and points to the debt which Burma owes India, from where the teachings came. But the love, the concentration and respect is completely Burmese. The young boys and future monks are carried from temple to temple, giving and receiving blessings. It is a day of celebration and rejoicing as family members gather and make offerings to send them on their way. For they will be the new teachers, the coming generation of learned ones. Under brightly decorated umbrellas and carried by their elder brothers, the children are prepared for their first initiation into the teachings of the Lord Buddha, while the surrounding pagodas reach into the blue heavens. Burma has been called the land of 1,000,000 pagodas. And in each of those pagodas, there are one or more statues of the Buddha Gautama, as well as, quite often, statues of his main disciples, and many other wondrous things besides. Young girls also prepare for training, and their families give offerings of money and flowers to the temples. And so it goes on for generation after generation, from teacher to pupil. All rejoice. All are happy. And all celebrate on this Wesak full moon day. What you see are the visible expressions of the soul of a nation. Almost a third of the world's population celebrates this festival. This is the Wesak festival as it is celebrated in Burma. It is said that when a man or a woman sees something for the first time, they look upon reality. Perhaps he has seen the very first fire in the world. How can we describe fire to someone who has not seen it? One day, everybody knows what fire is. It is as familiar as the sky, the clouds, and the air we breathe. If we find one who still has not seen fire, we too have to fall back on words and know that the words are not the reality. So it is when we talk of Mt.Kailash and the Wesak Valley, where we are presently bound. We are now well into the land of solitude, for this is one of the Earth's most solitary places. Human beings and their works are like minute clouds upon this landscape. just passing through. Five 5,000 kilometers to the northeast of Burma, on the other side of the high Himalayas, is Lhasa, capital of Tibet. This is the Potala Palace, one of the largest of the thousands of teaching monasteries for which Tibet has always been famous. The Potala is the true seat of the Dalai Lama, who is accepted as the reincarnation of an aspect of the Buddha. No longer is the Dalai Lama in residence at the Potala Palace, but this makes no difference at all to his devotees, who constantly arrive at the monastery from all over Tibet. This is an action that could have cost their lives a few years ago. Now, things are changing. Day by day, with the blessings and nurturings of an enlightened and aware Chinese government, the Buddhist faith is enjoying a renewal after years of bloody persecution. Temples once destroyed are being rebuilt, and a new generation of monks and lamas has arisen and is flourishing. Our goal now is the holiest place on our planet, the place considered by thousands of millions as the seat of the Most High God. It lies on the central plateau of Chinese Tibet and on the roof of the world. The name of this holy, most sacred mountain, which represents the spiritual center of the world for a third of the human race, is Mt.Kailash and the Wesak Valley. There, according to tradition and legend, Wesak Day is celebrated in its own unique way. Of all places of pilgrimage, it is considered the most difficult to reach and the most full of blessings for the successful. Mt.Kailash is 8 days of non-stop driving along the southern road crossing the Trans-Himalayan mountain ranges. And on this road, we were presented with visions of spectacular beauty, majestic and unforgettable. These vast, lonely plains have been ground flat by the sheets of ice that once covered them to a depth of several kilometers. It is a place of titanic forces which are still shaping our Earth and will continue to do so while yet the Earth has life. Of all creative energies, thought remains supreme. Some may believe that precise knowledge is the crown of thought. But better still to say that legend will crown thought. In legend is robed the will of the people. There is a valley lying at a rather high altitude in the Himalayan ranges in Tibet. At the time of the full moon in May, pilgrims from the surrounding districts begin to gather. Among those gathered, so the legend runs, is a group of those great beings who are the custodians on earth of God's plan for humanity. This group of knowers of divinity are the main participants in the Wesak festival. The night before our arrival, the truck breaks down at 22,000 feet, some 6,700 meters, while the temperature dives to minus 25 degrees. Nobody sleeps that night. But everybody thinks a lot. As we watch the truck slowly ice up and get covered in snow, it's a test not so much of our fortitude, but of our faith and the ability to recognize and hold on to that faith under the most serious circumstances. This is the final gate before entering the Wesak Valley, the home of God. With the dawn, we managed to dig out the truck and move into the final pass and down into the valley. The mountain ranges that surround Kailash have their own reality, and each mountain its own personality. Awe-inspiring and thought-provoking. And the dynamic pressures which gave birth to these mountain ranges are still active far below the surface of the earth, so that we find springs and geysers of boiling water adding their beauty and power to a vision of eternal snow and crystal air. The Wesak festival here is also a day of reunion, of pilgrimage, and of joyous expectancy. It is a holy day. Approaching the time of the full moon of May, pilgrims from all the surrounding districts begin to gather. The holy men and lamas find their way into the valley, which is overshadowed by the sacred mountain. Kailash stands in splendid isolation, radiating majestic beauty and power. Some have spent months traveling to this valley. For others, it's the fulfillment of a lifetime dream. Others recall traveling there in their dream state. Such is the nature of this festival. We arrived the day before the full moon, and already pilgrims were gathered, attaching their prayer flags to the center pole and circling the area in prayer. a teacher reads from sacred texts to the pilgrims. We were the first camera team to visit this site and to photograph the Wesak Valley and the Holy Mountain, a great responsibility. We were greeted as fellow pilgrims, even though many of the devotees here have never seen Westerners. Is this the sacred valley that some of the world have dimly sensed for eons? Surrounded on all sides by mountains, with an opening to the northeast and Kailash rising above it all, the Wesak Valley is a magnificent sight, and for our long pilgrimage, a dream come true. The day of the full moon dawned clear and bright, in sharp contrast to the blizzard conditions of the day before. Many more pilgrims had gathered, yet where did this great crowd come from? Now they circle the prayer flags with intensity and expectation. The chanting becomes more rhythmic and harmonious. This enormous flagpole has several tons of prayer tied to it. So many prayers, in fact, that it makes it impossible to move. How easily we could have missed this valley had it not been for the chance encounter with a lama whose true identity as the Rinpoche or head lama only became known to us on the following day. His welcoming of us as pilgrims seemed to symbolize the East opening its doors to the West for the first time to partake in its most sacred festival. The men are senior lamas of the Red Hat sect. Their presence emphasizes the important nature of this holy gathering. None of what we are watching has been organized. It has just come together, evolving naturally in the mighty presence of Mt.Kailash. The lamas gather their musical instruments and prepare for the approach of the full moon. A stillness settles down upon the crowd. The expectancy in the waiting, onlooking group of pilgrims, disciples, and others who have found their way to this valley becomes very great. Through the entire body of people, there seems to be felt a stimulation of powerful vibration. Who could deny this soul-uplifting energy? Fusing and blending the group into one united whole. We had the feeling that we were not alone. Millions of others were there in consciousness. And that the Wesak festival was an outer expression of an inner spiritual reality. It was the high point of our pilgrimage. Words were not needed. We had linked to another world. Legend has it that the Wesak festival forms itself into a channel for the transmission of power and blessings from the levels on which the Buddha may be found. He acts as a focal point for that power and, passing through his aura, pours it out over humanity. The Wesak festival is, for many millions of devoted Buddhists, an uplifting and thought-provoking experience. It may not provide them or the world as a whole with immediate answers to pressing problems, but as a wise man once said, it's not the answers that you need to know, but the questions you need to ask.